We've made it to 2025. That means we've got a new set of movies, and it's time to start debating which movies are going to make the most. With that in mind, today I'm doing a 2025 movie box office prediction tier list. Going into this, I made a list of 24 movies that I felt were going to be some of the bigger films this year that people are already talking about. As always, I almost certainly missed some movies. There's some other big films that are coming out, or big movies that haven't even been announced yet, but these are some of the ones that people are already chatting about. If you want to create your own tier list, the link is down below in the description. If you create one, take a screenshot of it and then post it on your Instagram stories and tag me. I will share some of your tier lists over there on Instagram as well as on Twitter. With that said, I'm gonna get started and basically go through these in release order. First up, Captain America: Brave New World. This one's a little bit tricky to predict. We have a good bit of information to work off of in trying to make our prediction because we have the trilogy of films from last year, we have the track record of the MCU over the last several years, but the last Captain America movie came out in 2016, and it was basically Avengers 2.5. So you can't really use that as that good of a predictor, and then you can look at MCU movies over the last 2 years, and that's not really helpful, where you have the Marvels way underperforming at $200 million. You've got Deadpool and Wolverine making the most money that an R-rated movie has ever made. And then you have the one that's probably the most helpful predictor here, which would be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And it made $850 million, which is a good number, but it's not like, wow, what a great number. I would say this is going to do less than that, and probably significantly less than that. I'm going to put this one in the 500 plus category. I'm expecting probably around $700 million. Captain America's a strong brand. The Harrison Ford is in there. We got some Hulk action, so it's going to do well. But if Guardians of the Galaxy closing out of a trilogy, there's a lot of goodwill there, only made $850 million. I think this is going to do significantly less, so I'm only putting it there. Then we have Snow White, the movie with 1,000 bad headlines surrounding it, and a lead actress with a tendency to say ill-advised things. Now, these live-action remakes sometimes do fantastic and make over $1 billion, or in the case of Lion King, make over $1.5 billion, but other ones have kind of bombed. Snow White is a true classic, the original feature-length animated film, but it's not like a Renaissance film where there's just a ton of built-in, like the Renaissance era remakes, or there's a generational thing that works really well in their favor. So like that was my childhood when the Renaissance happened, and now my kids are the perfect age. There's that cross-generational thing. Snow White doesn't have that. And then there's just a million bad headlines surrounding it. Some of the trailers look bad. Some of them have things that haven't looked all that bad. But I think that this one is probably going to be fairly dead on arrival. I'm going to put it in the 300 plus million category. It's going to make some splash. Even bad headlines are still headlines. Bad press is still press. It's going to do something, but considering its budget, it's going to lose money, but I think it's going to do something like that. Next up, a Minecraft movie, and this is another one. It's really tough for me to get a good read on it because I'm just so not the target audience. I don't play Minecraft. Total generation gap. That's what my kids are obsessed with. And the humor in the trailer is very much targeted towards a generation younger than me. And so even the trailer that's better, I was still like, I don't get it. But my kids were starting to like it. And even a couple days ago, my 6-year-old was saying whatever the meme is, when I was a kid, I dreamed of the mines, whatever that line is, my 6-year-old was saying that. So there's an audience there. Tough for me to get a read on. I'm going to put it in the $200 million plus category. There's a large youthful audience. If it turns out to be good, if it taps into that thing where kids, maybe it'll do better than that, but that's what I'm feeling right now. Then we've got our next MCU film, Thunderbolts. This one is really tricky to estimate it because we don't have, it's a team-up movie for non-stars. So you're building off of people that we're familiar with, but they're not the ones that carried movies in the past. Tough to anticipate what to do with that. Based off my trailer reactions and stuff like that, the interest is less than it is for Captain America. Captain America, of course, being a much bigger name, brand, character, and having Harrison Ford in it. But I still think it's going to perform strong. I have the feeling, based on the buzz that we have thus far, that it'll probably be a little bit better of a movie. So I don't think it'll do as well as Captain America, but it'll be in that same ballpark. It's not going to do what Guardians 3 did. But I don't think these aren't movies that are going to do like the Marvels either. Today's video is brought to you by Factor. Are you like me, ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. And that's everything that I want and need in 2025. I'm trying to be healthier and be more productive. Factor allows me to eat right in less time. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Keto is the plan that I go with because I'm a high protein, low carb kind of guy. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/SeanChandler50off. and use code SeanChandler50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code SeanChandler50off at factormeals.com/SeanChandler50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Then we have Lilo and Stitch, another one. I'm just not the target audience for this. That film came out after I graduated high school. The original came out before I graduated high school. And I just didn't go see animated movies as a single adult. So I saw it for the first time fairly recently, like in the history of my channel. It's not one that my kids have latched onto. I'm not part of the built-in audience for it at all. But people that loved Lilo and Stitch are very excited for this movie. So it's a little bit tough to get a read on that. Lilo and Stitch is not The Lion King. It's not Aladdin. It's not Beauty and the Beast. It's not The Little Mermaid. But there is a different generation that did love it. I think it'll do respectable, but I'm not expecting $1 billion club. Something in the same ballpark as Snow White. Snow White's such like a lightning rod for controversy. It's tough to know, will that like elevate it or will that squash it? Will it actually be a disaster? There's a little bit of morbid curiosity there. Lilo and Stitch has just, it feels like it's a smaller audience that's talking about it, but it's positive buzz. I don't know how to predict which one will do better, but I'll put Lilo and Stitch slightly ahead. Moving right along, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And I'll cut right to the chase on this one. It's in the 500 plus category. Let's just put it right between our two Marvel movies here. Now, Fallout made it into that 750 plus category. It was the highest grossing film in the franchise. But then with Dead Reckoning Part 1, you had a pretty big drop off. There's not really a clear theory as to why. There's not like one thing that makes everyone like, that's why it happened. It's a lot of guesswork, a lot of people trying to like, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, but we don't really know what happened there. So it's tough to say if this one fixed it. But I would expect this one to be in the same ballpark as the last film. Because it has the word final in there and not part 1, I think that'll help it. It'll perform a little bit better. It's not releasing 2 weeks before Barbenheimer, which kind of hurt it a little bit before. So I think it'll do a little bit better, but I still don't think it's going to make it up into that 750 million plus category, unfortunately, as much as I wish it would. Then we have Karate Kid Legends. This is the merging of the Jackie Chan remake with the mainline Miyagi universe with Ralph Macchio. It's been 15 years since the last Karate Kid movie. The last Karate Kid movie made about $350 million. But that was at a point in time where there hadn't been a Karate Kid movie in over 15 years. So that was the only thing scratching the itch. Jackie Chan was a little bit bigger of a name back then because he hasn't done quite as much since then. But you are bringing Ralph Macchio in. You do have Cobra Kai keeping things alive and bringing a new set of fans. But also, Cobra Kai means that a little bit of that itch, that Karate Kid itch, has been scratched over the last several years, and maybe some people are a little bit burned out. There's some people that watched this trailer and they went, are we just doing this again? So I don't think it'll bomb or anything like that. I also don't think they've spent a ton of money on it, but I'm going to put it in the 200 million plus category. Maybe a strong 200 million performer. So we're getting close to that 300. In trying to make my categories, I was like, it's right on that line between the two. So it's very strong 200 plus, but I don't think this is going to be a runaway hit. I think there's just a little skepticism. There's not quite the novelty of another Karate Kid movie. You don't feel that way when you've now had 6 seasons of Cobra Kai. So I think in a certain sense, Cobra Kai almost hurts the movie while giving a built-in audience, but it does hurt some of the novelty of fresh new Karate Kid. I haven't seen the trailer for this one yet. We don't have a ton of the marketing or anything like that yet to be able to really get a vibe for things. I mean, they have released things. I'm aware of that. But we don't have enough to really get that sense of growing momentum. It is a number of months out, and it's not a sequel. It's an original story. So it's a more difficult to... You can't compare it to the last movie or something like that. So I'm going to throw it in the 300 plus category. Other thing that makes it tricky is that Pixar spent several years releasing their movies straight to Disney Plus, which hurt the brand, but it also meant you can't compare its performance to Luca. You can't really compare its performance to Turning Red. So the other originals they've done fairly recently, not theatrical, so we don't have that point of reference. So I'm going to go with a kind of conservative guess there that I don't think it's going to knock it out of the park, unless it's fantastic. It could be fantastic, and it does great. But originals are a little bit harder of a sell these days. How to Train Your Dragon, the remake. This one to me is like a total wild card. I don't know what to expect here because How to Train Your Dragon, very solid performers. First one came out 15 years ago, so a little bit of a potential generational thing here, but not fully. Like there's a hint of that. There's a little bit of that could take place, but it's so soon, only 15 years, that the kids that were the target age 15 years ago, are they married and have kids now? Yes, some of them are. Has their kids grown up to be target age yet? Probably not quite yet. So there's a little bit of generational stuff, but not quite. There's a little bit more skepticism, cynicism here. So it's like, why are we doing this? Same director, huh? Why? But also, I think How to Train Your Dragon is a movie that lends itself to live action. I'm not proposing that doing a live action remake 15 years later is a good idea, but the nature of the story, a kid riding on a dragon and the pirate ship things and stuff like that, the Viking ship things, that's all very cinematic live action stuff that plays well in that setting. So it might work really well and thus do well. I'm going to throw it in the 300 million plus category. The last movie in the franchise did a little over 500 million. I don't think we're going to get quite there, but I don't know that we'll be terribly far off. It's a franchise with a lot of... There's a certain novelty to it. There's a curiosity. Will this thing work? So that's where I'm going to put it. Maybe it'll crush it. I don't know. But it's tough to imagine the live action remake that people are like, really? Why are we doing this? Outperforming the last movie that came out in 2019, the year of billion-dollar films. And that movie at that time only made a little bit more than 500 million. I think will be a little bit less. That puts you in the 300 million category. The Ballerina. This is the John Wick spin-off movie that apparently John Wick actually is in quite a bit of this movie. It's not just a cameo. He is a supporting role in this film. It's set between the previous 2 John Wick films. So a little bit like John Wick, 3.5. It's kind of what this movie is. People like Ana de Armas, they love this world, and they did reshoots to make it more of exactly what people wanted. The trailers for it looked really good, looked very promising. But, the John Wick movies it's not a $1 billion club. So even the mainline movies there aren't making $750 million, anything like that. And they also don't cost a crazy amount of money. So they're profitable at $400 million. I think this one's going to do less, but it's still, you can make in the high $200 million, and I think that's still a strong performer, but I'm going to put this one in the 200 plus million category. I don't think we're going to quite reach 300 million, and I don't think it needs to be considered a success, because the budget there's modest. It's more reasonable. So that's a decent performance for that movie. Like that, I think they would be happy with that. F1. This is the F1 racing movie, hence the title, from the director of Top Gun Maverick, starring Brad Pitt. And it had a reported insane budget, and they said it's not quite that high. But this is a film that they shot on real F1 tracks and everything like that. And they put out the first trailer a year before it came out. Like, they were promoting this movie to the F1 crowd a long time ago. Seems like they think that this movie is very promising. For that reason, because they're confident in it and they're promoting it so early. And I think it kind of will tap into a little bit of that Top Gun Maverick energy. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to put it in the 500 plus category. It's a little bit tough to say until we have that full trailer and you can kind of get the vibe, but it seems like the kind of movie that could play really well with just normies, like normal people. Maybe we'll probably get a trailer at the Super Bowl, and it'll be like people that love Brad Pitt and just have this really thrilling, exciting race car movie. And it says from the director of Top Gun Maverick, just taps into a number of things where maybe it could perform really well. I might be way overestimating it, but then again, they're putting a lot of resources into this thing, so they have a lot of faith in it. Megan 2.0, cut to the chase on this one, under $200 million. Now, to be clear, if this movie makes just under $200 million, it will also make their studio like $100 million. The first Megan was made for like $12 million. It made just shy of $200 million, and thus just printing money for the studio. Very extremely profitable film for everyone involved. So, though I'm putting it at the bottom of, I don't think this movie's going to make a ton of money compared to the others, it also, if you look at every other movie on this list, it probably cost a quarter of the next cheapest movie on here. A quarter of it. Maybe less than a quarter of the less cheapest of the ones that are up here. Like, Karate Kid was probably like $100 million or something like that. So it's probably like a quarter of what Karate Kid cost. Something like that. Quarter of what Ballerina cost. So making under $200 million, it would still be very profitable, but I would guess it'll perform right where the first movie did, where that movie kind of overperformed, where it kind of came out of nowhere and people were really excited about it, but the novelty's a little bit gone, so it'll be a little bit more front-loaded maybe, but I would expect it to do about the same as the last one, assuming it's around the same quality, which was just under $200 million. Next one on here, a lot of people talking about this film 28 years later, once again, cut to the chase, under $200 million. I don't really, this is a bit of a wild card, but if you look at how much the previous two movies made, the higher grossing of the two made like $68 million. 20 years ago, so let's do double that. Ticket price inflation, double that. And so it made $120 million. Still well below $200 million. Well, it's going to grow a cult following. Okay, let's add $50 million on top of that. It's still under $200 million. So I just think it's one of those ones that cinephiles love it. Has great buzz. It's not a movie that cost a ton of money, I don't imagine. But also, it's not a gigantic blockbuster franchise. So you can't expect gigantic blockbuster money out of it. So I'm going to put that one under $200 million. Probably a good bit under. If you like box office analysis like this, consider joining over on my Patreon for as little as $2 per month, or if you use promo code Sean25, you can get 25% off a new annual membership, which would be $15 for an annual membership where you get all the exclusive videos, all the exclusive live streams, and in particular, I do a weekly box office show where I break down the box office, what happened, and like yesterday I did a live stream where I went through the 20 highest grossing movies of 2024, and I said, did it over or underperform? Not was it profitable, when we talked about that too, but we talked, did it overperform what it should have done and what was expected, or did it underperform, as well as looking at kind of like how did it do globally or internationally versus the US, all that fun stuff. This is deep dive. So if you like this type of content, consider joining over on Patreon, where I do a lot more box office breakdowns just like this. The link is down below in the description. Use promo code Sean25 for 25% off a new annual membership. You could, at the lowest tier, you can literally get it, all the videos, all the live streams for just $15. Let's get back to it. Jurassic World Rebirth. Now, the last Jurassic film was not particularly well received. The one before that was not particularly well received. But guess what? They both joined the $1 billion club. I'm putting this one in the $1 billion club. Of the movies we've looked at thus far, I think it has the highest potential to reach $1 billion. Simply put, people love dinosaur movies. This is the dinosaur franchise. It's got ScarJo in there, so it's got star power, but more importantly, the stars of the dinosaurs. It has dinosaurs, and these movies sell tickets. And despite not the track record of the recent ones, disappointing people, all of them still made $1 billion. And so you don't bet against the Jurassic franchise. You just don't do it. Now, I'm not surprised if it's only in the 750 plus category. I'm not surprised if there's a little bit diminishing returns, but it's also a refresh. New characters. We're not doing cloned humans and stuff like that. We're doing something, well, maybe there, I guess we'll find out, but it's something fresh. I think that'll reignite some interest. Superman, my most anticipated movie of the year. Another one super difficult to predict how well it will do, simply because it's kicking off a brand new franchise. We haven't had a standalone Superman movie in over a decade. So all of these different criteria make you go, I don't know. It's a little bit of depends on how good it actually is. But based off of the initial numbers for the trailers, how well my trailer reaction did, the interactions, how well everyone else's did, all that fun stuff, I'm going to throw this one in the 750 plus category. Some of that is looking at what did the last James Gunn movie do? It did $850 million for Guardians of the Galaxy, and Superman is more popular than Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, it's more complicated than that. MCU, established characters, he won people over. DC, damaged brand. But I think there's a lot of people paying attention. There's a lot of people going, I want to give it a shot. Can we get Superman right? Will we do Superman that's not being deconstructed and depressed? Is James Gunn, can he pull off the balance right, not go too humorous? A lot of people are paying attention. So I think as long as it's good, it could be in that 750 plus category. July's a big month. We got Fantastic Four First Steps. And let's just keep this going. Fantastic Four is going up in that same exact category. And which one will do better? I don't know. I really don't know, because we're so far out. We don't have that trailer yet for Fantastic Four, but kind of the same reasoning here of we're taking really famous Marvel characters that haven't had a good run. They've never had a franchise that was broadly, just widely accepted. Now it's joining the MCU. There's literally now been 6 years of anticipation for this movie coming out in the MCU. They didn't rush it. So I think this is the MCU film this year with the highest potential to do the best. Always the quality of the films, the reviews, of course that matters. But with what we know right now, I think it's the one with highest potential to do the best. So it goes above the other two movies, and, if they really knock it out of the park, I mean, maybe this is the MCU getting back to the $1 billion days without needing nostalgia bait. Maybe so. But 750 is where I'm putting it right now. Then we have The Bad Guys 2. The previous movie was well received. The people that watched it seemed to really enjoy it. It made $250 million. So I'm expecting this one to do about the same. So we're going to throw this one in the 200 plus category. When a movie does well and is well received, sometimes it has a growing audience. I haven't sensed The Bad Guys having that sort of like continued cultural impact. Maybe some of that is because the characters in it are a little bit older. It's a little bit more mature of an animated film that's doing, Ocean's 11 with animals and stuff like that. So just like it's cutesy, but the characters themselves are kind of more mature. And so maybe for that reason, it just doesn't quite have the same impact with kids. But I'm expecting it to do about the same as the last one. So $250 million. Then we have The Conjuring Last Rites. This will be the final film in the main line of Conjuring films. Maybe it's the last film entirely in this universe, but I don't see that happening considering The Nun still makes bajillions of dollars. You can just look back at the track record of the films. There's a little bit of diminishing returns. They don't cost a ton, so they're still very profitable, but a little bit of diminishing returns. So I'm going to put this one in the 200 million plus category. For a horror movie, that's a fantastic number. That's a great number. I would expect it to perform strong. The previous one kind of underperformed, but once again, 2021, COVID, 2021, HBO Max, day and date release on HBO Max. So that kind of hurt its box office. So I would assume this one will do a little bit better. Also, anytime you're able to promote a movie as the final movie in a franchise when trust hasn't been destroyed, you get a little bit more interest. So it'll do better than the last one. So a strong 200 million somewhere in there. Moving right along, we have Tron Ares. One that, once again, really difficult to predict how well this movie will do because we've got two past Tron movies. One of them came out over 40 years ago. That's not helpful. And the other one came out in 2010, which to me feels like yesterday, but in fact was 15 years ago. That was a long time ago. The last one made over $400 million. A good, but not great number. Good enough that we're still making a Tron movie, but bad enough that Tron movie is 15 years later. I cannot, as I'm saying this, I cannot believe that Tron Legacy came out 15 years ago. That's messing with my mind right now. This whole 2025, 2010 was 15 years ago. I'm not doing well with that information. I'm struggling with it, though I should know that because I have a child that was born in 2012. And he's not 15 years old, but we're getting close. So but it's struggling with it. I expect this one to probably perform in the same ballpark as the last one. Let's do it. Let's put it at the front of the category, though. Right at $400 million. Strong performance. I don't know if that's, I don't know what they're expecting. I don't think they know what they're expecting from this one either. Let me look up the budget real quick. No budget information, but it's Disney, so they way pay for everything. So they're probably expecting it to make $1 billion because the people at Disney are kind of crazy. I expect it to do what Legacy did. I don't think Legacy has a great story, and that was a movie infamous for bad de-aging. It was an early example of them doing CGI de-aging of Jeff Bridges, and it was infamously terrible. But obviously things have gotten better in the last 15 years. And if the story's stronger, maybe this one will do a lot better because visually these are just really cool movies. The score is always fantastic, and they have 9 Inch Nails, not just Trent Reznor, but 9 Inch Nails doing it. So we'll see what it does, but I'm expecting $400 million. All right, we're in the final stretch. We're looking at Mortal Kombat 2. Another one where it's difficult to know what to do because the last Mortal Kombat movie came out 2021, early 2021. Warner Brothers day and date release on HBO Max, COVID stuff. So it's not the easiest to use that to predict things, but that movie didn't do great compared to these other movies. Compared to its budget, maybe it did good enough that we got a sequel, but it didn't do good enough that we got a sequel real quick. So that tells you a lot about it, but it's going in the under 200 million category. Megan's going to do better. It's so tough to predict 28 years later what that one will do because it's been so long. But Mortal Kombat 2 is very unlikely to just suddenly make $400 million out of the blue. I'm not expecting that. I know some people I've heard from some people that saw it at a test screening and they said it's good and it's more the movie that we wanted with the first film. I've heard promising things about it from people that saw it at a test screening. They've been test screening this way before release. But It's not going to make $400-500 million, so bottom. Then we've got another Disney animated film with Zootopia 2. These Gen Z sequels crush it. Animated sequels crush it. I'm putting it in that $750 million plus category. You just look at Inside Out 2, made double that amount. It's about to make $1.7 billion. Billion with a B. Double this category. And then Moana 2, it's, within throwing distance of $1 billion. And so sometimes it comes down to whether it's good or bad, but those movies that are that Gen Z, Gen Alpha, grew up on them, now they've grown up, and quite literally, the first movie that Liam and Chloe saw in the theater was Zootopia. Zootopia, in a household that was even before I had this career, started the YouTube channel, anything like that, right beforehand. But this is a movie that's really important. And I just imagine how many other kids that are in middle school with my son, will be in middle school with my daughter by that point in time, that was their first first movie they saw in the theater. So there's something powerful about that. Parents remember that, and those are the movies that kids grow up with. So never downplay the power of your childhood movie getting a sequel. Real quick before I give you the final 3 on here, remember, if you want to create your own tier list, the link is down below in the description. Make your own one, screenshot it, share it on Twitter, over on Instagram, your Instagram stories. You got to be on your Instagram stories. Tag me, and I will share some of your lists over there. Also, if you like this type of content, consider joining over on Patreon. I have a weekly box office show. Also did that video where I went through the top 20 highest grossing movies of last year and said, dude, they over or underperform. Use promo code Sean25. You get 25% off a new annual membership. That's just like $15 for all the exclusives in 2025. We're looking at the final 3 movies with Wicked for Good. Wicked Part 2. This is one of the easier ones to predict because Wicked Part 2, or Part 1 just came out. We can look at its box office. People dug the movie, so you can expect something in the same ballpark, and that will put it firmly right here in the 500 plus category, not quite 750 million category. The current one that's still in theaters, still making money, is at $680 million globally. So 70 million away from that next category. Next one potentially could grow an audience. It could, maybe in particular internationally, if it performs better internationally than the next one, we get into that next category. But as of right now, the numbers, past performance is best predictor of future performance. It goes in this category. Strong performance in this one, safely in this one, could get into the next one, but as for my prediction, distinctly in this one. Next to last movie on the list, Five Nights at Freddy's. The first one made bukus of money because it had a very modest budget, and then everybody showed up opening weekend. Had horrible legs, terrible fall off after the first weekend, but it opened huge. This one goes in our 200 million plus category. It's going to do probably right around what the last one did. They'll probably learn some lessons, maybe a little bit better than the last one. I know my son and all his friends are going to be there opening night, eating all of it. This is my son's most anticipated movie of ever. The greatest film in his mind of ever made was the first Five Nights at Freddy's, followed immediately by Angry Birds 1 and 2. But, that's his taste in movies. But it's got a built-in audience. It's going to do about the same as the last one. And $200 million for a horror film that cost under $50 million is fantastic. It's a great. Final movie on the list, Avatar, Fire and Ash, coming out in December, just like the last one, and just like the one before that, which now will have come out 16 years ago. No reason to beat around the bush. This is extraordinarily likely to be the highest grossing movie of the year. Very safe to say it will be in the $1 billion club, much safer than Jurassic World. The Avatar movies do fantastic at the box office. They're odd ones. Their cultural impact is very different from their box office performance. It doesn't have the fandoms the way that these other franchises do. Avatar doesn't have that, but they're cinematic events that people buy tickets to. The first movie is the highest grossing movie of all time. That was an original film that did that. It was not a sequel at the time, an original film that made almost $3 billion. That is unprecedented. It is still unprecedented. It is unlikely that any movie will come close to that. Avatar 2, I said it would make $1 billion. I didn't think it would make $2 billion, and it did. I'm not going to doubt James Cameron anymore. So there was a diminishing returns, so I think you'll have more of that. Also, an Avatar movie coming out over 10 years after the previous one. There's a novelty to it. How will it do? What will it look like? What are we doing here? So some of that novelty's gone, but it's going to make $1 billion. You don't vote against James Cameron. So what movie do I think is going to make the most in 2025? The safe bet, the obvious bet. I don't think anything like on paper, looking at past performance, likelihood of future, like all that, without question, Avatar is the one most likely to easily be the highest grossing film of next year. So it happens to be the last big release of the year, but there's a reason for that. Nobody wanted to compete against it. It's going to be the top film. So here's my final ranking. You can create yours at that link down below in the description. Share it on your Instagram stories, tag me, share it on Twitter, tag me. I'll reshare some of those. It'll be interesting to see our different opinions on all this. What was my hottest take also? That's always a fun, I want to ask that question more. What's my hottest take in this video? What's the one that you think I'm way off base, whether underestimating a film or way overestimating a film? I think I was pretty conservative in almost all of my picks here, except maybe F1. I don't even know what would be the wild hot take on this one, but let me know down below, and consider joining over on Patreon. I do more box office content like this over there. The link is down below in the description. Use promo code Sean25 on a new annual membership to get 25% off, and keep talking movies and TV too much in 2025.